Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for Broadway World. Since 1998, Tom Schumacher has worked with the Walt Disney Company, setting new standards of excellence in film, television, and theater. As the president of Disney Theatrical Group, he oversees the creation of every new Disney musical worldwide, including the three juggernauts currently running on Broadway, The Lion King, Aladdin, and their latest Frozen. And on Friday, August 10th, Freaky Friday kicks off nationwide on the Disney Channel, and I dropped by the New Amsterdam Theater to chat with Tom about everything Disney. Well, thank you for letting us be here in the loft here.
Welcome to the loft. We call it the Writer's Loft. Sometimes it's Chez New Amsterdam because we turned it into a restaurant. And sometimes I nap on the sofa.
So tell me, a lot of stuff has happened in this loft.
Yeah, we developed this. It's actually not part of the New Amsterdam Theater Complex, but it's a building that I think came with it for $1 when we did the redevelopment of it. And it's the top floor. We didn't know what to do with it, but this building has fabric storage for Aladdin all over the world. There's a rehearsal room in this side. And then we have the loft. In fact, a lot of time with Bobby and Kristen was spent up here working together on Frozen most recently. And we do readings of our new secret works together and all sorts of things up here.
And also Michael Grandage was sort of in this room.
Well, we hid Michael Grandage in this room for quite some time.
Okay.
He would come in the back door and no one knew he was working on Frozen, so it was nice.
I love that. Well, first I want to tell you that I adored Freaky Friday the other night.
Oh, isn't it great?
It's so superb, and no one throws a premiere party better than Disney. What a great day that was at the Beacon. What was that day like for you?
Well, it was crazy for me because 90 minutes before the screening started, I was in immigration at Newark Airport, coming in from around the world. So it was scheduled, and I was flying in, so I had to race home and pick out something to wear, and then get back in the car and race up there, hoping that it was all still happening. So it went very fast for me. But to watch it again, working on it, both as a stage show, but for the TV version itself, watching all these dailies, watching rough cuts, there's nothing like watching something with an audience as opposed to being at home. So that was fun. And to see Heidi get that attention,
We're so thrilled. Take me back to the beginning. Where did your love for Freaky Friday begin?
Well, it started because, of course, our beloved Mary Rogers, wrote this fantastic novel it came out in 1972. And she invented the whole thing. She invented the whole idea of the body-switching comedy. Disney buys it, makes the movie in '76. That's the famous Jodie Foster version. Then there's the Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis version. So people knew it as a Disney title because there have been 2 Disney films, plus a funky little channel spin on it, and all in the novel. So our audience, when we test them, what would you like to see us do, wanted to see Freaky Friday. And so I dove back into Freaky Friday. I'd known Mary for quite some time by this point, and I gently, up at the apartment, asked her over a cold lunch, "Dear, come over for a cold lunch." It's the way women of that generation spoke. Sure. And I said, we're thinking about doing this, and she thought it wouldn't work, and she thought that all the way along, and then she fell in love with it. And of course, she never got to see this full-on version of it, but she was a great partner making it.
You always knew this would make a great musical, didn't you?
Well, it wants to sing like a musical because it's got this magical moment and the switch between of the characters switching. And when you think about how to move that story forward, it's got all the components of a musical. Some stories are terrible ideas for a musical. What makes it sing? But this one actually does. And then it was really Bridget Carpenter, Tom Kitt, and Brian Yorkey that unlocked it and figured out how to tell it. And with Christopher Ashley as the original director of the stage version, we were able to shape that. And that was thrilling. And all the readings we did, and it just has all the elements of a musical.
Well, let's talk about the creative team you put together for this. That's sort of your mantra. You always put the best creative teams together for your shows.
Well, it's a painful process.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Sometimes people walk in the door and say, "Would you want to do this?" And I have to say, yes, and in fact, we already are.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go down a path and you think, we didn't bring the right people to the table for this particular project, and you have to start over, which I've done publicly. People know it. That's not a secret. But what I found, when you look at these things, when you look at Alan Menken and Harvey Fierstein and Jack Feldman and Jeff Calhoun and Christopher Catelli all saying we'll jump on board with Newsies for licensing. It happened to accidentally end up on Broadway, but that wasn't its plan. When you look at Stephen Schwartz, who I've worked with, forever, and Alan Menken, who's like, a partner, And when we did Hunchback, the level of people, and Peter Parnell, for pity's sake, writing the book to that, when you look at the level of people who want to do this, that Tony and Pulitzer Prize winning Tom Kitt and Brian Yorkey wanted to write this, and how excited they were at the screening the other night. It tells you the most interesting thing for us and for the authors and directors and people who come onto it is what's the material.
Yeah.
And because you don't know in this business. Someone can say it's going to be the biggest Broadway thing ever, and it doesn't go anywhere. And we've, on the other hand, been able, through this licensing structure, to do all sorts of formats with it.
What I love also what you do at Disney is you find regional theaters around the country and you team up with them. What a great idea.
Well, I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because I came from a regional theater, right? So I grew up doing summer stock and community theater, but then my big job out of college was working at the Center Theater Group in Los Angeles. And my big memory of that, of my time there, was when the extraordinary, the brilliant, and my dear friend Manny Eisenberg would come into town with those Neil Simon plays. So we did the original Brighton Beach, we did Broadway Bound, we did Biloxi Blues. Those all happened, as well as I Ought to Be in Pictures.
Sure.
And so that these things would happen with Manny. It was like, Manny's here. And that was Broadway coming out to use the resources we had. And that idea that you can work on your material with a really accomplished group of people is a lot. So whether it's with Eric at Signature on this, we've done two things initially. The first Hunchback out at La Jolla, and we did the original Peter and the Starcatcher in La Jolla. It's also fun to have a prop shop right on the property.
That helps, right? Totally.
In fact, I had the prop shop at La Jolla when we were doing Peter and the Starcatcher build a prop for Mary Poppins because I wanted something fast.
I love that. Well, if anybody can do it, they can do it. August 10th is a big day for Freaky Friday. Tell me what happens on August 10th.
Well, August 10th is when they actually put it on TV the first time.
Yeah.
But as you know with these Disney Channel movies, they play again and again and again and again. But the 10th is very exciting for all of us because it's when the world gets to see it.
But it's also a big licensing day for the show. Yeah,
because we
Tell me
launched
about
the
that.
licensing side of it. Well, that's really unusual. The fact that we were developing this, and then Gary Marsh from the Disney Channel, who I've known for a couple of decades, said, could we look at this? And when they looked at it, and while we were doing the workshopping, they said they wanted to make a movie of it. But then we said, but we're going to license it. And then we realized we're speaking to the same audience. So while we show it on Friday, we're launching the licensing, and we're literally showing kids do a pilot production that Cozy went out to the International Thespian Festival in Lincoln, Nebraska, which if you've never been, is a must attend, these high school kids. So they mounted their own production, which Cozy went to, and so she does a little mini documentary while you're watching in the between, like on the commercial breaks. So you get to see what's happening, and then the licensing starts right then.
That's thrilling.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
So there's now two versions of this available, right?
Yeah, well, there's a full-length, proper, as Bridget and Tom and Brian created the show. And then there's the junior edition, which would be what your schools could do, that's a little more contained and pulled in that kind of more matches the Disney Channel version.
You must be really thrilled about just licensing this for schools, of what it will do for them, too, and how they can cast it and everything else.
Sure, but first off, when you look at the movie and you see the way the movie reflects the way we cast the original show, so which looks like our audience and is broadly representative. And that's fantastic, and that they were able to capture what we did with that. But when you think about all these kids out there in these schools who are now doing these fantastic things, whether they're the middle school kids or the high school kids, what they're doing in their schools because of not just what Disney is doing in the marketplace, and our impact it's huge. I mean, 90,000 productions have been mounted of our shows since we started this in 2004. Do you realize that almost 40 million Americans will have, or 40% of America, so that's 125 million, 40% of Americans will have touched, worked on, or seen one of our licensed school productions. It's a breathtaking thing when you think about the number of kids engaging with it. And for us, I grew up doing this. Most of the people watching this interview probably have done something in their schools, and we know how meaningful that was to us, and whatever we can do to support it. We're not alone in this. There's the fantastic catalog that Freddie Gershon and everyone at MTI has. What Freddie and Drew were doing over there, bringing this material and advancing how these materials are created for schools. But Sam French, what Ruth Lazarus is doing at Sam French is sensational to get kids to do plays. We have Peter and the Starcatcher out in the world. It's the number 3 most produced play in high schools right now. That we can take these materials out in the world and have schools engage with it. Yes, does it throw off money? Yes. Is it good for the authors? Absolutely. But the real power of it is engagement.
Yeah. Do you sometimes go to productions?
All the time.
Yeah. What's that like for you?
It's better if I'm not known.
When they see you come in with your glasses, they're like, "That's the man."
Oh, I have discreet glasses. I have a pair of knocked back glasses. Don't even notice it's me. You just change glasses, really. Just change glasses and wear something boring, and nobody has a clue it's me. But no, I love to stick my head in and watch. I love to go to the festivals because then I can see lots of it.
Sure.
And my local school does it, and I'll pop my head in and watch.
That's great.
Yeah.
Since 1988, you've worked for the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah, isn't that shocking?
No, but what I love about that is you oversaw 21 animated features, right?
Yeah, which is weird because I grew up in the theater, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up going to the theater, making theater. I took dance class every day. I was the custodian in my dance studio to pay for my dance classes. If the mirrors and the floors were clean, I got to take class. If they weren't, out the door. I'm still very, very close to my dance teacher from there. But I grew up as a theater kid, theater major at school. In fact, I went to college with Susan Kartsonis, who produced Freaky Friday, which is crazy. But and then Disney, when Roy Disney, who was such a huge force in all of our lives, which is a lovely man, when Roy Disney sort of took animation back and said, let's bring it back, Peter Schneider was out there, one of the first people out there. It was obviously my virtual sibling. And Peter started just recruiting all of his friends from the theater. And so a huge pulse of people from the theater went to Disney Animation. So we were all making our first movie. So I'd never worked in film before that. And then I started as a producer on a movie and then became the head of development and then eventually became the head of animation and TV animation and all that. So it was a weird sojourn into the world of these extraordinary artists who I'm going to argue shaped an entire generation with these extraordinary movies like Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas and Hercules and Hunchback and Mulan and Lilo and Stitch and all these things. Not to mention I did the first 5 Pixar movies with John Lasseter and
But they were like theater pieces. I always thought we loved them, watching them from a theater standpoint, saying these are perfect. And this is before you even thought about doing them as musicals.
Yeah, well, exactly. But that is the credit for that goes to Alan Menken, and most importantly, as Alan would tell you, to Howard Ashman. And this new documentary that's out now, if I can give it a plug, on Howard. This new Howard Ashman documentary that Don Hahn has made is so spectacular, and really is something that everyone who would watch this or care about this wants to see, because they may have grown up under the spell of Howard Ashman and not even known who he was, what he did as a director, as a lyricist, as a writer, as a producer. Howard's impact on Disney is you can't even control or sort of grasp how big it is, but also on us and everything we've done theatrically.
How did you move to Disney Theatrical?
It happened. My dear friend Robert Jessroth, who directed Beauty and the Beast, he had done the theme park version. And he went to Michael Eisner when we were a teeny tiny little company, like a $10 or $12 billion company, compared to the hundreds of billions today. Time again said to Michael Eisner, our then chairman, what if we did this on Broadway? And Michael had grown up in New York, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who ran the studio, had grown up in New York, and it seemed like a good idea. So Rob really pioneered this. And they mounted Beauty and the Beast. The Dodgers were the general managers. There was no true Disney theatrical then. Then that happened in March of 1994. And in June of 94, Lion King the movie opened, which Peter and I had been working on a long time. And we also had Pocahontas in production. We'd done Aladdin by that time. Beauty and the Beast had come out by that time, the movies. So Michael Eisner, the chairman of the Disney company, said, what if we started producing some more stuff for Broadway? Why don't you guys do this in your spare time? And he asked me and Peter to set up a little business. And there were already people here working, but they didn't have the blessing of the big idea. And so then we did the big idea of Disney Theatrical, and it became bigger than everyone expected it to. And I was commuting between LA and New York for a number of years, and that became untenable. So I live here full time.
Yeah, because
all I do.
You and Disney changed the scope of the Broadway theatrical experience with the musicals that you do.
Yeah, I think, yes, I agree that a change happened.
Yeah.
I believe it's multifaceted. I believe that what Mike Nichols and everyone did by bringing Annie to Broadway, when you look at what the Goodspeed's impact on that is, right? You see what Michael Price's impact.
Sure.
So I always say, look at all these people. But and frankly, since I'm talking about Mary Rodgers, when you look at what Rodgers and Hammerstein did by doing shows like The King and I, like Sound of Music, if you're of a certain generation, your first Broadway show was The King and I, or was The Sound of Music, your entry point because there were kids in it. That when Annie comes to Broadway, it changed everything. Right, I saw it in the summer of 1977.
That was your first trip to New York, wasn't it? To Broadway, yeah.
Right after it won the Tony
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And so what that did, but then this moment in time of the resurgence of Broadway, bringing Times Square back, which a lot of credit goes to Cor Khan, a lot of credit goes to an enormous number of people who were committed to making this happen. And Michael Eisner said, let's do this theater.
Yeah.
But then animation gets credit for it because all these people were raised not thinking musicals were stupid. And I think, and I think he would concur with a lot of this, that Lin-Manuel would tell you that since he grew up in the music of Mencken, right, that there's an influence of that classic musical structure which we took from the great people who came before us, and then it builds. It's a natural build to that.
I love that. You have 3 juggernaut musicals running in New York right now.
Simultaneously.
I mean, let's talk about The Lion King going into its 21st year on Broadway this November, right?
Yeah. 21 years ago today,
Yeah.
Julie and I and everybody, we were all in Minneapolis with the show running. Yeah.
It was your idea to bring her in. You made the phone call to her, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I'd met Julie 10 years
Yeah.
before that, before I was at Disney. I wanted to produce one of her shows in a festival I was putting together, a festival that ended up including Peter Brook and the Mahabharata, Guy La Liberté and Cirque du Soleil, and all these things that we brought to LA. They were the first time they were ever in America, Mahabharata, sort of all this. And I wanted Julie's production of Liberty's Taken, and we couldn't make it happen. And then 10 years later, when the chairman of the company, Michael Eisner, said, let's do Lion King on stage, both Peter and I said, well, this will never work, because you can't put it's so filmic. And then Michael, in a very liberated way, because I'd grown up, he said, look, I don't care how you do it, figure out how to do it. And I literally, Stuart Oken and I left that meeting, walked back to my office, picked the phone, and I had Julie Taymor in my Rolodex. And I said, well, let's call her. And so I called her at home, and that's how it happened.
So
that and a hell of a lot of work.
Oh, sure. What does that milestone mean to you? I mean, that's a big number. I mean, and it's playing all around the world, right? London next year. London has a big...
Oh, well, London has
anniversary, right?
It's 20th coming up.
Wow.
Japan has its 20th this year. We just had our 20th.
Yeah.
Well, I've said this before, but it bears repeating, that for me, The Lion King is this extraordinary journey of all the people who touched it. I was WhatsApping with Le Bohème this weekend. Not La Bohème the opera, but Le Bohème, the most heard voice of The Lion King, because his is the chant that opens it. But Lebo's impact in writing all of that music, writing songs with Mark Mancina by himself and with Mark for the stage show. Lebo's impact on the show. When I think of what Julie did with the movie, but when I think of Rob Minkoff and Roger Allers and what they did to shape that movie, when I think of what, all these people, down to the individual animators and what they did, how much invention is there? The late Joe Grant, who worked on Snow White, for Beauty and the Beast, for Monsters Incorporated. Joe's idea of Rafiki with the stick, and everybody who touched it, who brought something to it, most of whom no one knows who they are. A handful of people get a lot of credit for the work that a vast, vast number of people did. And then the part of The Lion King that I think is the second most beautiful thing for me about it is that it has a fundamental truth in its narrative. So that if you were with me and we watched the show in South Africa, you'd have the same experience as watching the show with me in Hamburg tonight, or in Scheveningen, which is outside of Amsterdam. If you'd seen it with me in Paris, if you were with me in Tokyo or Fukuoka to watch it, if you'd been with me in Brazil to watch it, or Mexico City, and you would realize that we all share so much. And at a moment in time when we are torn asunder at our roots, The Lion King speaks the truth. There's a truth of the good and the balance of the world that Mufasa wants to see. It's both environmental, it has high social consciousness, and then when you see of the destruction that Scar introduces, and we might laugh at Scar and think he's a fool, but his villainy runs so deep. And this metaphor is never lost on an audience anywhere. And that a child can watch it and take one thing away about the aspirations of a child who makes a mistake and puts his life right. The adult watches it and recognizes they must leave what they've done and do their best because they'll leave it to the next generation. Artists watch it and see the beauty of what Julie Taymor can create in her staging, in her dramaturgy, in her lyrics, and in her designs. People can enter it at whatever point, but the truth of it, and its truth today, is frankly more resonant than it was 21 years ago when we were in Minneapolis launching the show. And as I talk about it with you, I'm actually haunted and want to burst into tears because here we are going through it all again.
Aladdin dazzles audiences right downstairs in this theater. What made Aladdin so special for you?
I didn't know how to do it. I can't do my job unless I see a win-to-win. So people kept asking me, how could Aladdin, why don't we do Aladdin? And we literally, in the beginning, said, well, we could license it, to our earlier part of the conversation. And we did a reading across the street, directed by Disney staffer Jeff Lee, with a lot of people very well-known people. We just read it, a stage version that Chad Beglin had put together. And it was then, and it took a long time to get to that point, working with Alan and everybody, but we got it there, and then my longtime music partner, Chris Montan, who's the head of and produced all the music for every movie, every stage play I've ever done, and Chris said, why don't we do this on Broadway? And I was like, what? And that's when Casey came in, and then we began to shape the Broadway version. And then there's key moments in that, the discovery of how we could do the genie. When you look at Trevor John Nicholas, who does it in London, and Major Attaway does it on Sayers, and James Iglehart, who started it, and Michael James Scott, who was with us in the beginning. When you look at how they play this sort of Cab Calloway meets Fats Waller kind of idea, that was an entry point for it. The magic, when Jim Steinmeier and I met and talked about how could you levitate a giant carpet and have it float around the stage and not smash into the walls and fall out of the sky. When he had given me this idea during Mary Poppins, how to levitate, that was another big moment. These were certain touch points. Yeah. And then that glorious score. You just put the best teams together. That's what you come back to. Well, it's, when you know enough people, then you know who to call. Sure. And we have been so blessed with the people who have won it. And as you can see, we come round and round and round to things, Natasha Katz, people I've worked with over and over again. And then don't forget, and everyone says to me, right now we just opened Frozen, and what are you going to do next? It's roll out Frozen. Where I'm going to be upstairs tomorrow afternoon looking at stuff that Christopher Oram is doing for the tour, right? Because now we have to design a version where you can make a dress disappear and freeze over a world and put it in a truck, which is harder than doing it. Making that dress disappear on the road is not easy. Well, let's talk about that phenomenon at the St. James Theater, which is Frozen, where you literally have people flying in from all over the world to see this show. Yeah, it's fun. Beyonce came this weekend. And I got a call on Saturday afternoon, Beyonce wants to come tonight. It's okay, move you out of these seats, moved you here, you're going here. Had to do, and we had a bachelor situation going at the same time. It's who's in the guest room, who's using the special suite, but everybody's coming. It's fun, everyone's coming, and we do the rollout. So the first thing will be the national tour, and then comes London and Japan, and you have to tailor it for each one of those. So interesting. We just 2 weeks ago had all of our Japanese partners with whom we have 7 shows running in Japan right now, and having them come in to meet with us of how we adapt and what we do, and then actually. UK team is here right now, and but that's a big deal, to try to and for Michael Grandage and Christopher Oram and everyone to get their head around it.
How many productions you have running worldwide now? Do you have any
It
idea?
shifts day to day.
Okay. Like as of today.
But I think it's 22. I'm going to look off camera. Is it
Yeah.
22 tonight? 21 tonight.
21?
Those are under our control.
That's
But
amazing.
I just came back from Italy where they are literally doing, in Italian, Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah.
Our Shakespeare in Love in Verona, which made me laugh because there's a line in the play when Shakespeare says, "Where are you going to set your play?" And he says, "Verona." And they say, "Verona again?" But they're actually doing it in Verona, and I missed it by a day. But those are not ours. Those are just licenses around the world. But the 21 tonight, are our productions. But things close, shift, move, transfer.
Oh, I'm sure by the time this runs at Broadway World, you'll have even more.
Yeah, they shift around. Yeah.
I want to talk to you about this book. This is one of my favorite books. I've given this book to all my nieces and nephews.
It's one of my proudest achievements.
So tell me about the book. You have a new version coming out,
yeah,
right?
So we did 2 editions of this one.
Okay.
And now I'm doing a 3rd edition, which, and literally, we're in the final throes of lining up pictures and stuff. So we'll do it again. It won't be the artifact book that this one is because times have changed and no one wants a book where you pull things out of it. Funny that. So there's a few tricks coming in the new edition. And of course it's going to feature a great deal of stuff that wasn't in these. These books came out so long ago that we have shows that haven't been seen yet. So we get to put Aladdin in, we get to put Frozen in, we get a lot of stuff.
This must make you very proud, though, because I've been in many homes where this book sits in people's bedrooms and on their coffee table with their kids who are now starting out in the theater because of your book.
Well, what it does is it has given me an access point with educators and to remind people that the theater is a collective experience and it's not just actors. And it really started because I kept finding that people would say, I want to be in the theater, and they wanted to be actors. And I thought, like me, no, because you can read well out loud does not mean you're an actor. We could advise some people in Hollywood of that. But it doesn't mean you're an actor because you can read well out loud. But there's so many other jobs in the theater. How does it actually happen? And so we really break down all the jobs and all the stuff. You know, if a candle is on stage and you light it with a match, it's a prop. If a candle is on stage and it's got a light bulb in it, it's electrics. If a load of laundry is on the floor, it's a prop. If someone goes to the load of laundry and puts it on, it's a costume. What is stuff? How does it get there? How do we do this? What kind of configurations of theater are there? In the round, you can be a theater with one person and a glove. You can be a person with a giant flying glove, like in Frozen. So that's the fun thing for me.
Yeah.
And all my friends are in the book. So
I love that. My final question is, let's talk about the global, worldwide vision of Disney musicals. You have 21 worldwide productions in every language, playing all around the world. It touches people in every language. What that means to you, the audiences you're touching around the world.
I love dropping in to the shows, and because even if I'm watching them in languages I barely speak or don't speak at all, because I know them so well, I get to watch the audience and see what they react to. And they do react to, the global response is always the same. The immediate reaction to moment is based on translation stuff. But the fact that we all come together, I find quite beautiful. I was, right before coming to see you, was sitting with one of our associate directors, Anthony Lin, who oversees Lion King, all these productions of Lion King. And he said that working on these productions for him, you create such a family, except that once you've mounted the version, instead of the child leaving the nest, you leave the nest and you leave it behind. And for me, that is the most complicated part of this, is that you can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
And the good news is we have so many extraordinary people that spend all their time maintaining these shows and doing this. And I come back to it over and over again, but it's the people in the production. You know, we have people, Jonathan Freeman, having done Aladdin as Jafar, and he's the original Jafar from the movie, but he was also a Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast. He created the role of Grimsby in Mermaid, and he was Admiral Boom in Mary Poppins. To me, that a veteran like John, that Jonathan Freeman would be in 4 of our shows, Andrew Keenan Bolger in a bunch of shows, Ashley Brown doing 3 shows with us. I mean, this is, for me, the joy of people coming back in and seeing them change and shift in their career. We have a guy downstairs who was a chimney sweep in Mary Poppins, who now is on staff. And how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
and that people can shift and change, and all the babies born in our productions, and people who find themselves, find that they want to perform, that they want to direct, it's always this interesting thing of a group of people. It also is the most complicated part of it, because people are messy, people are complicated, but all in all, it makes this, what we do, so beautiful, the people.
But it's the amount of jobs you've given people too, not just on stage, but like you said, wardrobe people, hair people, makeup people, everything, the jobs you've created
Kel
in the
Danielson is
theater.
leaving us, having worked on Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah.
and then every production of Lion King, and he's just retired. And it's just amazing to me. But also, not just that he's worked on it, but that he shaped it and changed it, that he figured out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is profound. We were working on the 20th anniversary of Lion King, and we redid some orchestration, so Dave Metzger came back in, and Mark Mancina came back in. And I look around the room, and it's me and Julie, and Dave Metzger, orchestrator, Mark Mancina, great composer, Le Bohème, the soul of the Lion King, and we're all in the room. And I keep thinking, like, we were all these, like, kids. I was in my 30s, you know, when we started this whole thing. And as was Julie, we were all, and then I look at it now and I go, oh my God, we've, like, become grumpy old men. You know, it's just a lot of gray hair in the room. And that we've been together that long, and that we're all still doing it. And they were all just in London, looking at it. And then look at Lion King. Lion King's now becoming a movie again. These things go on. Beauty and the Beast got made into a movie.
Yeah.
Again, Aladdin is coming out as a movie. And then another generation will plug in and then say, oh, I'd rather see it on stage.
Thank you for doing what you do and how you move the theater along and everything you do for Disney. And thank you for sitting with me today.
You're very generous. Thank you.
The best. Thank you very much.